Hey everyone, it's Michael Camp Bentley. I'm going to show you how to create a distributed stream deployment on your local Docker lab for free. Absolutely no cost to you. So it's 10 easy steps. Step number one is installing Docker. So you may have done this on a previous tutorial or not. If you haven't, make sure you go to docker.com and get the installer for your operating system. Get it installed. Word of caution, you may have to restart your computer. Step two, after we get it installed, we want to make sure it's up and running. So step two is make sure Docker is running. One way to do that is to open Docker Desktop that you see here on the right side. There's other ways to do it. You may be familiar with other commands, etc. Other ways to look at the processes running or whatnot, the services running. Whatever you do, just make sure it is running before you move on to step three. So one way to do it is open that UI there, the Docker Desktop, and you can see there's some controls down here when you go full screen. As long as that's green, that usually means it's up and running. It may be paused though, so sometimes good to go full screen. All right, step three is kind of like create a little environment. We're going to call it my test environment. If you are coming from a previous demo, you may already have my test environment, so you're welcome to create my test environment too. Or maybe use the one that's there and just clean it out. But the way I did that was I went in Windows to start running command, and from there I was able to run these commands here, mkdir, my test environment, right, my test env, and then we want to change directory to the environment. So I'll show you that right now. cmd, right, here we are in my users directory on this machine. So the first thing is to make a directory called my test env, and then I want to change directory with the cd command on my test env. And here we are. You can see there's nothing else there. Quick PWD shows what directory we're in. And we can move on to step four, which is going to be, I don't know, maybe the most complicated step, really. We've got to create a Docker compose.yml file. Some people call this YAML. Sometimes it has a in there, YAML. Um, don't ask me the difference. Maybe there is one. If you do know one, put it in the comments. Let me know. Is YAML with an A different from YAML without an A? I don't know. The way I do this in Windows, though, from the command prompt, is I just say notepad docker-compose.yml. Okay. Now, one thing to note is if that file doesn't exist, which it doesn't in this case, it's going to ask me if I want to create it. This is a pop-up box that you get with Notepad opening, so make sure you don't miss the pop-up. And here it is. This is what it looks like, right? So you get that and Notepad, and you can't do anything in Notepad until you agree or disagree, right? What it's doing is it's actually asking you to create the file. So answer yes to that, please, for the demo purposes. That's step four. Step five, what we want to do is copy the contents that Cribl.io has for us. There's actually some documentation on how to deploy with Docker, and then we're just going to copy that straight from the website. You'll see me do that here in just a second, but the link is basically docs.cribl.io/stream/deploy hyphen Docker. You can see me type that all out just to move it down the line, and then just to summarize it by removing the HTTPS from it later. But basically, we'll open that in a tab, right? And that's what it looks like. So just copy it out of that tab and threw it down here, I believe. No, remove the HTTPS. There we go. One line. docs.cribl.io/stream/deploy hyphen Docker. Use it. Right here you can see the docker compose.yml file. I used version 3.8, which is the most latest. I'll copy that with the right click copy. Sometimes Control C gets me on the keyboard, and it helps if you can see me actually do it. So there we go. Right click copy instead of the shortcut. Okay, back to my docker compose.yml file and paste the contents in there. And then we're going to move on to step six. All right. Forgot to save that file. I had to pause the video for a minute and go back and save it. Step six. what we're going to do now is run docker compose command. Okay, so the command is docker compose up. There's some more switches we can give it, but I'm just going to use a plain, simple this command. I know they use docker compose up. We'll get into some more switches later, but if you do that, you'll see all the logs going to standard out there, and basically everything ends up right there in your terminal. So you can watch everything as it downloads the image or pulls the image for the worker and for the leader and saves them, and then it runs them, and it could take a little while for this to get going in your environment. So basically we want to let this run through, give it 10-15 minutes, okay, in a very small environment. I have a really powerful machine here, so I only have to give it about 10 minutes. So what I'm going to do is skip forward here. We'll skip forward to where I get it going. There we go. Here we are. So I got a bunch of log messages there. You can see the master, etc. And came back and refreshed. It took me about 5 minutes before mine got going. I'm going to tell you 10-15 minutes in your environment, but it should do its thing and get going. I mean, if nothing else, the leader should start. You may not have your workers right away, but step 7 was to log in with admin and admin after verifying it was up. Therefore, uh, step 8 is going to be product registration. But just before I get there, I just want to give you the note on how you can get to that. The URL is HTTP. This is not HTTPS yet. Okay, we'll do that in another demo. But HTTP localhost 19,000 as opposed to just 9,000. And that's the difference between the last video where we did a single instance deployment and now we're doing a distributed deployment. Anyways, we'll go ahead and register. Be sure to put your company as AbleVersity sent me. I'll let the folks over at Cribl know that you found them through my tutorial. Okay, at least in your dev environment. Don't do that in production though. All right, let's go. Step 8 also is change the password. So we're going to go ahead and change that password. Now we'll get the same welcome page, but things have changed underneath the hood a little bit now that we're in a distributed environment. You notice we have groups, we have workers, got a little bit different UI here. We don't have all the tabs up at the top we had before, but we actually go into our worker group itself, and by default there's just one. We can get into where we add data sources and whatnot. So a couple of things are different here. Um, you can see we've got a manager here and just one worker. So there was just one in the UI there, and that's not going to give us HA. So what we really want to do is spin up another worker node. We don't want to just rely on one worker in our environment. And typically we'll have 2 or more. That's where these switches on the docker compose command come from. So if you want to increase the number of workers, all we have to do is add this -- scale workers equals number. I'll show you that here in just a second. But basically, we've got it up and running now. So step 9, as usual, is share this with your friends. If you found it useful, if you like it, uh, you've got a distributed environment on your local now. Share it with your friends and family. Let them know it worked. Step 10, though, as always, profit. So we'll go a little bit beyond it, though. Bonus round. I don't see why we can't go ahead and show you the way to spin it up. Okay, we'll go with 2 workers instead of just one. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is just shut that one down. And I think I'm even going to, yeah, that's it. I'll just shut it down. I'll come over here and I'll run the docker compose up command from Cribl's website, which is a little bit further down on the page under selecting number of workers. That's the same page we were on before. And I just add the -D, which D is daemon, so that's going to background it now, as opposed to putting everything out on the standard out. And if I switch back over to my Docker desktop, I can see I have 2 workers now. Okay, and if I give the master a little bit of time to get going again, we should be able to see more than one worker. Okay, The problem here is now I can't see the standard out. I don't know what's really going on, if anything at all, because we added that dash D switch. Okay, I put it in the background. We didn't have to add the dash D. We could have done it without the dash D and just to scale workers, and then we would have the output from 2 workers and the manager all on one screen, which would be a little bit too much to look at anyways. So, pretty good idea to put the dash D on there, make it a daemon so you don't see the logs in the window. Well, I believe that's all I have for you today. At this point, you've got a standalone Cribl environment on your local. If you stay tuned for more, we'll get into how to set up an Nginx proxy in front of them or a load balancer, and we'll get even into sending some data in the very next lesson. So stay tuned. Hey everyone, it's Michael Camp Bentley. I'm going to show you how to create a distributed stream deployment